When it comes to exciting technical showpieces, you can rarely go past a good futuristic racer. The combination of speed, special effects, and slick environments can be intoxicating. Mix in some tight controls and a pumping soundtrack, and it can be an incredibly seductive way to sell people on a new console. In the pantheon of futuristic races, two franchises immediately spring to mind: F-Zero and Wipeout. Both have helped sell consoles and have had several high-quality installments to their names. Both have also been absent from the market for far too long, but that's a discussion for another time. Over the generations, there have been many other excellent futuristic races to grace our screens. One game that never quite received the recognition it deserved was XGIII. As the third installment in the franchise, XGIII, or XGIII as it's called on the box, faced stiff competition in the genre. As well as the latest entries from the existing juggernauts, there were a huge number of other competing games released during the same generation. From Quantum Redshift to Kinetica, fans of futuristic races were well catered to during this era of consoles. XGIII would have to do a lot to stand out from the crowd. The base game is relatively uncomplicated. There's a league mode for you to play through, unlocking new tracks as you place in the various cups. This mode also lets you upgrade your bike as you earn money from your wins. There are also arcade modes and split-screen multiplayer. At its core, XGIII is relatively similar to Wipeout in terms of both its gameplay and presentation. Races take place in futuristic environments at extreme speeds, with the tracks twisting and turning in gravity-defying ways. Racers are encouraged to constantly push their vehicles to the limit through a combination of risky boost mechanics and a variety of weapons. The presentation is slick and modern, dripping with stylized fonts and pumping electronic music. It never quite hits the highs of Sony's franchise, but it certainly puts forth a good effort. The game controls somewhat similarly to most other games in the genre, but it's just a little bit twitchier. The futuristic bikes in XGIII tend to corner quite tightly in comparison to the heavier vehicles found in other futuristic races. Mixed with the additional mayhem caused by the weapons, the gameplay often feels a lot more reactive than some of its peers. When considering the quality of a futuristic racer, I personally believe there are three critical factors to look at. The first thing to focus on is the track design. Tracks need to be broad and navigable at high speeds, but still twisty enough to feel dangerous and exciting. It's a difficult line to tread, and many of the lesser races fall too far to one of either side. XGIII does a fairly good job here, with the majority of tracks providing enough thrills without ever making you feel like you're not in control. They are more restrained than the craziest tracks in something like F-Zero GX, but they have enough character in both their layout and aesthetics to be memorable and fun. The second thing to consider is the music, which is another area where XGIII scores highly. The soundtrack was compiled by the Ministry of Sound. You can actually see their logo in the background of some of the tracks if you look closely enough. The London-based music company has always had its finger on the pulse of the latest in modern electronic music, stemming from its roots in British nightclub culture. As a result, XGIII is packed full of excellent tunes that complement the high-speed action perfectly. Speeding through vertical drops and corkscrews is all the more exhilarating when it feels like there's a DJ supporting your every move. The final one is the sense of speed, which is something that XGIII absolutely nails. There are lots of things that contribute to this. The physics of your bike at high speeds, the sound design as you accelerate, even the way the camera works to ensure that you can still see the road ahead clearly whilst hurtling around the track. All of these things are critical to the way the game feels at high speeds, but perhaps the most important element that contributes to this is the game's rock-solid frame rate. In fact, this is probably the game's biggest upgrade over the first two titles in the franchise. Obviously, the poor Nintendo 64 did not have the horsepower to deliver both clarity and high frame rates. Some games, like F-Zero X, sacrifice detail for a smooth 60 frames per second, whereas Extreme G1 and 2 went in the other direction. Thankfully, the power of the new generation of consoles allowed XGIII to feature both detail and a solid frame rate. At 60 frames per second, XGIII feels buttery smooth and excellent to play as a result. It is leagues better than previous games in the series, showing exactly how important frame rate is when it comes not only to presentation, but to gameplay as well. So, is XGIII as good as the big dogs in the genre? Well, no, but it isn't as far behind as you may think. It has tight gameplay, nuanced track design, and a fantastic soundtrack. For those who have already exhausted the obvious picks from the genre, XGIII is well worth picking up. After all, you can never have too many futuristic races, right?